It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk. It makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. It's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds and the ink stains that have dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory. That keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the rocks and ivy painted on their columns now that bind me. Or something that somebody said because they thought we'd fit together walking. It's not knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving when I walk around the railroad track and find that you're moving on the back roads by the rivers of my memory, and hours you're just gentle on my mind. Though the wheat fields and the clotheslines and the junkyards and the highways come between us, and some other woman's crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone, I still might run in silence, tears of joy might stain my face, and the summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you walking on the back roads by the rivers flowing gentle on my mind. I dip my cup of soup back from a gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard. My beard a rustling towel and a dirty hat pulled low across my face. Through cup hands round the tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waiting from the back roads by the rivers of my memories, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind.
And a good Monday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald back with you for a new week of shows on the McFiles. And we have a special treat for you tonight. And we are live in the big state of Oklahoma, Tulsa. And good to be here. And let's see, this is Chiefs country, Astro country, Royal country, Sooner country, Cowboy country. And Leslie Millwee country. It is good to have my dear friend Leslie Millwee. Good to see you, sweetie.
So good to see you.
Good to see you tonight. We're going to be here live with you. We're going to chit-chat. Let me lay a few ground rules to you folks. Please be respectful to Leslie tonight. We're going to be talking about some things. We may take a few of your questions. We're going to be watching the chat a little bit later tonight. You Facebook folks, if you put your questions in on Facebook, Cleo, if you could just post them in YouTube, because I'm blind to Facebook right now. I can't see it. But that would be helpful. But please respect our guest tonight, because we're going to talk about several things. But I do want to say thank you. Great hospitality tonight. It's good to be with the Millwees. Her and Bill are just precious, precious people, and they've been good friends. And Leslie's been on our show very often, and I am just super glad that she's with us tonight. And before I become a bad host, I'm always accused of being that. Let me say hello to the one and only Leslie Millwee in person. In person.
This is a first.
This is a first, and I am so grateful for it. I don't even know where to start tonight. I posted today that we were going to talk about the perils of the nation. I don't know the missing 30,000 tons of chemicals from California, the border, corruption in D.C., the ineptitude of the Biden White House. I don't even know where to go. But I do want to ask you first. This is important. The Durham report. And for those of you that know who Leslie is, she's got a little history. And by the way, Juanita Broderick may be listening tonight. I want to say a shout out to Miss Juanita. She's the one that introduced me to Leslie, and I love Juanita. She's just like a dear friend. She is a dear friend. And both these ladies mean a lot to me. You know, that night y'all did your little. We got to get you back on together.
We had fun.
We had fun that night. Oh, that was a fun interview. We got to get y'all back on. But I don't want to rehash Leslie's story, but she was basically done the same way by the Clintons and Bill especially that the other ladies were done. And her story has come out in the last 6 to 7 years. And I met Leslie in 2018 and met. I think we ran into each other in Atlanta, Georgia,
we did.
2019. Near the Braves Stadium. They had just built the stadium, and we've been friends really ever since she came on the show, and it's been a pleasure to have her. I've got her in person tonight. I'm just tickled. I do want to ask you about this Durham report. You and I are in agreement. It was a feckless attempt, I think, to just placate a bunch of people that we already knew what was in the report. We already saw it. Nothing to me was shocking. I mean, It's not like I heard anything, but you mentioned something to me tonight before dinner, and I want to ask you about the indictments that you believe, or you said that there were 4 separate indictments they had laid on the table against Hillary, and that they shoveled those indictments. And take us through that, because I was not even aware of that tonight until you mentioned it to me. But that's a malpractice of justice. Is that not where that's where we've been at for 20 years in this country, that people like that, and Bill Clinton's been getting away with crap for 40 to 50 years, but she has escaped justice too, has she not?
Oh, I think politically and I'm just talking politically, personally, he is evil, but so is she. The fact that the FBI not only decided not to press charges and indict her, they had 4 different times on 4 different charges. I understand 2 involved the Clinton Foundation and wrongdoing or some financial scandal, which we knew that was probably the case. I mean, who takes in $300, $400, $500 million and, says they get it from donors?
Right.
I mean, that's shady. And also for her email, I believe there were 2 charges related to her disposing of her or having the server in the basement and disposing of the electronics afterwards. So those are very serious charges. Some would call it treason.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very bad what she did. And I believe it was the day before the 4th of July when she came out. Well, I guess that was probably 2017. And she said,
correct.
Who cares?
Yeah, I remember that.
And
I remember that.
Just, and the reason she can say that is the fact that she's never going to be indicted for anything. And she knows it. She knows they're bulletproof.
That is very true. Is anything in this Durham report, because I've been hearing rumblings they're opening new investigations on her. Do you think that's, Juanita's always told me all these years, she says, Chris, I've just gotten to the point, because it's like they're Teflon. There was a term in the mafia called the Teflon Don. And, the Teflon Don means that nothing that you throw against the Teflon sticks. And it just seems like nothing against these people, Leslie, has stuck. I mean, for 50 years, these people have gotten away with some of the most hideous of crimes. And look, we joke about the deaths, but these people, I mean, I do not doubt that there have been deaths caused by this couple, that they have ordered them, they have done it, dozens. And, it just, the list goes on. And do you think there's ever going to be justice for it?
Every time I get my hopes up, even, the fact that it took 5 years for the Durham report, which is ridiculous. I do not, because they've literally gotten away with murder. I used to have hope, but I think I'm more of a realist now. I think they'll have their justice
on the
when
other
they
side.
Go to hell.
Yeah.
But I think they're both evil. And I just personally, as a Christian, think there is a supernatural evil that surrounds this couple. They get by with literally murder and every other crime. How can a couple go through that and be Teflon, like you said?
Yeah. Teflon Don. I'm glad you brought that up. We talked about that one night on a show Ian you had, and I've had some spiritual people tell me that they think, and I know we joke about this, but it's very serious. Look, it's a very serious thing. Do you think that she's made some kind of pact with evil that is basically caused her to go so reprobate that really no matter what happens at this point, she would never come back to God, even if God came down? And I believe he still deals with her, Leslie. I believe that he has to deal with these people's hearts. They can't be that dark, but I'm wondering if they crossed the line to where it don't really matter what happens at this point. They have sold themselves and made a pact with the devil that it's just, they're not coming back. What you think?
Yeah,
What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's been that way for a long time because you and I were talking earlier. Bill Clinton has a history of raping women that goes back to the time he was 16 years old. He raped a woman when he was on a Rhodes Scholar in England in probably 2 or 3 years, maybe before he raped Juanita. And then my situation happened in 1980, and Paula's happened, after that fact. Who knows who was in between? But the point of having all of these dots were able to connect due to media and all of the vast information we have, we know this incredible pattern that started when he was probably 16 years old and he's always been indignant. He's always been in denial. That just blows me away. Who has that much authority over the world that they think that they're untouchable? And that's what makes me think of the evil and satanic.
These investigations that are coming, so what I'm hearing from you is sort of what I'm believing, that they're mainly just to appease people thinking that something's going to happen to her, but these investigations will probably go nowhere. No. Are we in agreement with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. What was the point of releasing this with all the information we've known for all these years if you weren't going to do something with it?
That's true. I got a question for you. It's a political question, and it's one of those. What's the term I'm looking for? It's one of those if and but questions, and it's sort of, there's no right or wrong answer to this. But in the world of assumption, had the Durham report come out, this is 2023. It came out a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Had this report come out in the summer of 2020, before the election of 2020, do you think it would have made a difference, or do you think that it was a fated plot, what happened with Trump and what they had planned to do? Would it have made any difference in the minds of most Americans? Because we were talking about this too. You've got friends. I got friends. They still are in denial. They believe that John Durham is lying in that report, that none of these things that he said happened. Look, that you cannot fix stupid. You just can't fix stupid, and you can't fix blindness.
Well, and so your question, I'll just say there's probably a lot of points in the equation. One was, when COVID hit, no matter what, Trump was the bad guy, even though he bowed to Fauci and all these other doctors and people. I think Trump was still seen as a big part of why things closed down, why the economy tanked, even though that was not the case. I think we probably would have been much worse off if we hadn't had Trump.
That's true.
That's a what if. And then second, you have the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop.
Correct.
If that had come out with the Durham report, I would like to think that of all those Democrats, because I do have some friends that are very, I would call them conservative Democrats. They always vote conservative. Usually the big push button seems to be for older white women is the abortion thing. And I think it's tragic, but I think that's why many women and older women think abortion is, I think some of the younger generation is lost on that, but that's what I think drives them. I have one friend in particular that I dearly love. She's a conservative Democrat. We agree on a lot of things. But we were talking about the economy closing down. The Durham report should have come out. The Hunter Biden scandal. It's not even about Hunter Biden.
No, it's not.
It's about Joe Biden.
Joe Biden,
this man
the president.
is an
Correct.
evil, money laundering, scheming person who is, I won't say he's running the country, because God knows I don't think there's two marbles up there rolling around to give him that. But, the Susan Rices and Obamas that are running our country. I think it might have been a different outcome. And then the voting and all the vote by mail. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. That hurt the Republicans.
It did.
That did not hurt the Democrats. They have, whether you want to admit it or not, they have a wonderful way of churning out, get out the vote and things the Democrats have not caught on. I kind of blame, we were talking Rona McDaniel.
Rona McDaniel. Yeah.
I was really pushing for Harmeet Dillon. I
like Harmeet a lot. I met her. Yeah.
Because I think we're just reinventing the wheel every political cycle. And we've got to stop doing that. The Democrats figured out how to do it, how to get out the vote. We have not.
We were talking about a lot of things tonight before the show, and I want to go politics with you a minute. And then I'm going to get into some other things as it relates to the country. Me and you are pretty much on the same page. I want to just say this tonight. I don't dislike Ron DeSantis. I don't dislike probably any of the Republican field. I'm not a big fan of Nikki Haley. I think Tim Scott's an honorable guy. I don't think Tim Scott's a bad guy. I'm not a big fan of Mike Pence. I wouldn't vote for Mike Pence run the janitor of Motel 6.
No way.
But the field is getting higher. Tim Scott joined the field tonight, and Trump is up 56.3%, the latest poll, to Ron DeSantis is 19%. Is it fair to say that Ron DeSantis does more to hurt himself by getting into this race? Because there's rumors that this week he's going to announce an official run for the 2024 presidency. Does that hurt DeSantis more than it hurts the party, or does it hurt both? I don't think that the Trump supporters are going to be moved by DeSantis. I think what DeSantis is going to do is going to hurt himself for 2028. He's got no prayer in 2024 against Trump. It's best to stay on the sideline, wait till 2028. He'll have my full 1,000%. Follow-up question, and this is a part A, part B question. Do you think Ron DeSantis has enough humility to take number two if Trump goes to him and says, look, I'm willing to let you run with me, get your feet wet in D.C. as vice president in 2024, and then go for it in 2028, and then have Trump's full backing in 2028? Because I believe DeSantis will make a good president. I'm not saying a perfect president, but his time is not now. His time is down the road. And I just feel like Trump's the only one that can fix this mess short term in 4 years. I'm not saying fix everything, but at least get us back on track. What's your thoughts on all that?
I agree. I think it's important for Trump, if he runs and gets the nomination, which I would say there's a really strong possibility that's going to be the case. You have two not very humble guys. You're talking about DeSantis and Trump.
That's very true.
Neither of them
very true.
Have a lick of humility between them. So that's who I want to run my country, though. That's who I want to talk to China and everyone,
right?
Russia. So I was hoping, when the DeSantis name started floating around, in my heart of hearts, I'm hoping that Trump and DeSantis can make this winning ticket.
Right.
I don't see that happening yet. But, Trump would be a lame duck president, which would be wonderful because he would not give a rip.
No, exactly right.
He would just want to do the right thing. And that's what I think he wants to do. I think he loves America so much.
He does. Do you think, and do you think that he's learned his lessons from the first go around? That he's not going to make the same mistakes because, look, it's a given. Trump made some bad choices with his cabinet. Jeff Sessions, Christopher Wray, William Barr, McMaster's, Reince Priebus. The list goes on, bringing Marmarosa or whatever her name was into the White House, Scaramucci, this scumbag that just, he put him up there as press secretary, Sean Spicer. None of the decisions that he made. And I know some of that was rookie mistakes in the sense that an outsider coming into D.C., it's never going to be easy on an outsider that's coming in. It's just not. But the thing about it is this. If he don't learn from that first go around we're just going to be on this treadmill for 4 more years. And I don't want that. I want him to be what you just described. I want him to come in here with a broom and say, you know something? It don't matter at this point what happens to me. I'm not going to run again anyway. I think that's why they're more scared of him this go around than they ever were of him getting reelected in 2020. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think the stalwart and the hardcore people that have followed Trump and supported Trump since 2015 are going to be swayed by DeSantis unless something drastic happens. I'm kind of like you in the fact that I don't care about the tweets. I don't care if you look arrogant and brag about what you've done. It ain't bragging if you did
If you do it.
So,
that's right. It ain't bragging if you do it. That's right.
So that doesn't bother me. I have some girlfriends that are Republicans that are very offended by him. They think he's foul-mouthed and and I said, who cares? Who gives a rip when it is your country that is at stake? You want somebody nice and mealy-mouthed and not me.
Well, the truth of the matter is, Leslie, I'm just going to be a little blunt here. They're all foul-mouthed. I mean, if Ron DeSantis and Tim Scott and Nikki Haley and all this bunch and Pence and all this bunch that were called on the open mic on any given Sunday, any given day, I guarantee you there would be words they said that would just make us all cringe. And, oh, my God, did they say that? I mean, who are we elected here? We're not elected a pastor-in-chief. I'm not elected an angel-in-chief. I don't care if Trump uses a few bad words. There ain't been a president from George Washington to Donald Trump that ain't used a few bad words, folks. It's just part of their nature. We're not electing a spiritual savior of the country. I just want somebody in there politically that will get the border cleaned up and get the freaking illegals out of here and get our economy back on track and stop letting the Democrats run roughshod over our justice system, put an attorney general in there with something called balls on him instead of a vagina, and do the right thing and put these crooks in jail.
I agree. Absolutely. This border thing, I don't know if you want to go down that road.
Yes,
but I'm
talk about
telling you, I lived in Houston for 33 years. So I have very firsthand experience with illegal aliens coming in. Seen it all my life that, since the 80s. What I'm hearing from my friends about the tens of thousands of people that are invading the Houston area.
Yes.
Adams is griping about 61,000 people that have come in
to New York. Yeah.
We have 61,000 people in a town of 30,000 at the border.
Come on.
El Paso can't even feed them. They line up. I had a friend that sent me, he was traveling and he was in, I guess, El Paso. It might have been Harlingen. Both of the places were filled to the brim with sleeping bags. He said it stunk so bad he could not stay in the airport. He said, he sent me a picture of it live. He said, Leslie, there are dozens upon hundreds of people laying here on a cot that was given to them by Red Cross or Relief or whatever. If you don't think that's not going to be a real problem, and there's 5 million that have come in already.
I know. Well, you all are in a Midwest state here, and I just left a Midwest state, and I will tell you this, that this problem at the border is not just in Texas tonight. It is coming up the Mississippi. It is headed to the west. It's headed to the south. It's headed to the northeast. There ain't one nation that is listening to us tonight, one group of people from any part of the country that are not going to be affected by this illegal invasion. It is an invasion. And again, I'm going to give my McDonald platform. If I was president, this is what I would do. It's going to sound cruel, but it's the only thing that can work. It's in the world of La La Land because this was nobody would have the internal fortitude to see it through. McDonald would, because McDonald wouldn't care. I was just telling your husband a while ago, he said, we were talking about the presidency, and I said, I wouldn't last a day because my first press conference, Chris would be out of here. But I will tell you what I'd do. I'd round these, what's up, and I'd be giving them, I tell you what I'd do. I'd put a moratorium out over the nation. I would tell the country, you've got 60 days to either get legal or get out. And if I had a sheriff and I found out any sheriffs did not enforce our immigration laws. They would be immediately, I would basically be calling for the immediate removal of those sheriffs by these county municipalities. And that, again, goes back to the local people. They would need to remove those sheriffs. I don't care who they think they are. They're not above the law. And see, Leslie, this is what frustrates me. I hear even the Republicans talking about, we need new laws. We need new laws. Let me tell you something. We already got laws on the book. Enforce what's on the book. And you will be legal.
Exactly.
Correct?
Absolutely. And, not only just, I worry about, somebody said, oh, well, probably only, 1% of these people are bad. Okay, I'll bite that. How much is 5 million, 1% of 5 million? How many rapists, crooks?
That's 50 to 60,000 people.
Go ahead. Yeah, bring those in. Those are 50 or 60,000 crooks.
And we only had how many at 9/11? How many did we have at 9/11? We had 11 hijackers that took down the towers. And you think about it. You've got Afghani nationals being found among this crew. You've got China nationals being found among this bunch. You've got ranked terrorists on terrorist watch lists that is being found on this. Leslie, at the rate that we're influxing these people, and when Title 42 ended last week, I'm telling you something. We had Victor Avila on here a week ago tonight, and he was painting a dangerous, dangerous picture. He's in El Paso, where you were talking about a while ago. He was there watching these people come across. These ain't farmers and family people. This ain't Leave It to Beaver.
90% men.
Ward Cleavers are not coming across the border.
No, 90% men.
Yeah.
Do the math.
That's right. I gotta say this. Did you find it funny? I think what we should do, because I found this funny earlier. It was either earlier this year or late last year. Did you see the reaction to the Martha Vineyard crowd when they shipped those they shipped about 1,000 of them up there, and those Martha Vineyard people they had a stroke? I think that's what we need to send all these people and let Obama deal with it, because he wants it anyway. Let Michelle and Barack run the country again. Well, I tell you what, I'll let you run the conference, Barry. I'll bring him right to your backyard and let's see what you do with 1,000 illegals.
That's right. As I believe my son said, there were about 10,000 Karens that were protesting the illegal aliens that, they're standing there, not in my community. You should go to a restaurant in Houston, and I guarantee you, no one that's working there is legal.
No, I don't doubt that. I absolutely.
There's no check. They act like there's this big national e-check. That's bull. That's totally.
And I'm going to say, I think I'm going to agree with Janice here. I think it's at a point now that we don't even need legal, and we've got to shut this thing down. Look, there comes a point when you've crossed the line to the point that if you don't get a handle on what you've already got here, then anything else, whether it's legal or illegal, is just going to aspirate the situation. And I think right now we have got to shut the border down completely and say, look, we got a crisis here. And until we get a handle on this crisis, nobody's coming in. I don't care where you're coming from, period. And when we get this fixed, we'll open our borders again to legal immigration. That's too much like right, as my dad used to say. Common sense is out of premium these days. Some people are immune to good advice. That's just too much like right for them to do it. But that's got to start right there, correct?
And you know what? We need to put the National Guard on the border, all the way from every inch to every end. And you stop these people from coming in. Whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. I kind of got a different perspective on it too, which was kind of sad. The person that does my nails, they're Vietnamese. They said it cost me $20,000 and 13 years to get U.S. citizenship.
Goodness gracious!
So that was Vietnamese. You talk to people from other countries, Russians, Ukrainians. They have to pay to come into our country. They have to be on a waiting list. Why do we let everyone in South America come up? Why is it okay?
What is your thoughts about why you bring up the $1 million question? I know that the conventional wisdom is that Republicans want the labor, the cheap labor. The Democrats want the vote. But Leslie, I just feel there's something more at work here. And I think it's more sinister than just votes and labor. Because, look, to allow this to go on. And I don't hold the Republicans any less culpable than the Dems. The Republicans have sit on their candied asses. These RARSES. I'll use a more clean word. Arses. That's the British and the Australia word for it. They have sat on their backsides and done nothing to stop it when they've had the power, just like the Democrats have allowed it to happen when they've had the power. There's something more sinister going on. I believe there are forces over D.C., in D.C., that want to see the destruction of the United States of America.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to tell you something else. Nikita Khrushchev, the communist in the 1960s, he predicted when Kennedy and him were facing off with the Cuban Missile Crisis, he pulled the missiles out of Cuba. And but he told Kennedy then, he told America, he said, we may pull these missiles out, but I can tell you what, we will never have to fire a missile at you anyway, because you will destroy yourself. And within 30 to 40 years, communism will have taken root in your country. We will destroy you from within. Nikita Khrushchev was a prophet, because that's exactly what is happening tonight. You've got communists running this nation. You've got communists making these decisions. And let me tell you something. The destruction from within is far more dangerous than anything outside.
And we're also, we're on our second generation now of brainwashing these children. America's wrong. They're so bad. We had slavery like every other country on the planet, I might add. When they talk about these reparations and everything, I just want to say, I was a woman that was taken advantage of, and I had to grow up a woman, and it was kind of hard too. So I'm supposed to get reparations for that. Where does that stop? It's so ridiculous.
I know. Oh, I sent you something last week, and I think it was Cori Bush, the Democrat lawmaker. She only wanted $14 trillion for reparations to slaves. Leslie, our GDP ain't $14 trillion. Where's she going to get that? Pixie dust?
It's so ludicrous. And this thing in California, and Newsom's going to support it.
Oh.
And, what a joke. I wasn't a slave or slave owner, and the people talking about this were not, nor were their grandparents or their parents before them. So get off of your high horse for something that happened 10 generations ago. I'm sorry we made horrible mistakes by having slavery in our country, but you know what? Lincoln fixed that.
He did.
And there are repercussions, and there's still prejudice, but you know what? You're always going to have somebody that is lowly and and walked on.
Well, I'm going to say something that's going to sound a little bad and probably going to get in trouble for saying it. If we gave them everything they're demanding, they'd want more. This reparation is nothing but bullshit. Mm-hmm. It is a scam. It is a scheme, a Ponzi scheme. It is a sham, a ruse, a red herring, a Trojan horse. If you gave them every freaking dollar that they wanted, they'd still want more.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Oh, absolutely, because the Democrats believe in socialism.
Yes.
And with socialism, if you have more than I do, you need to give me part of it, and which is so ludicrous. I think that has hurt our young people so much, especially this last generation, into believing they're owed something.
That's correct.
Which they're not.
That is correct.
I was never taught that anybody owed me anything. I was sent to go out there and get educated and work and do what you had to do. And second, the government has made it where it's not only possible, it's likely. If somebody tells me that the unemployment rate is low again, I'm going to scream, because we are not even back up to pre-COVID employment.
That's right. That's very true.
And, Biden will get out there, well, we got 4.2%. Yeah, you idiot. It's because you have millions and millions of people that have left the workforce because they make $4,000 in cash sitting home. That's why. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. You got him over there today, just today. I was walking out of the hotel from Kansas City this morning. The headline was he had met with Zelensky over the weekend at the G7 summit, which is a joke in itself. We're going to send another another 10 to $20 billion of money to the Ukraine. And there was somebody that said something, there's slavery about everything. I'm gonna jump on something. I'm just going to say it like this. I believe that the greatest slavery in this country right now is abortion. Because you've basically got the unborn at the whim of murdering doctors and murdering mamas. And to me, that is far greater slavery than anything that's happened in our past. And the very people that are screaming the loudest for reparations to the slaves are the people that supports Margaret Sanger and that support Planned Parenthood, that support the abortion industry of America with their tax dollars and with their money. To me, that is far greater slavery. That is a far greater crime against humanity than anything that has happened to a black person history in America. And I'm not saying the blacks have not had a situation and a time of it, but I'm going to tell you something. A lot of minorities have. But there's been a lot of white people that have been basically discriminated against in an anti-discriminational way. They've been discriminated. Look, discrimination is not about skin color, because that discrimination works both ways. I've seen companies discriminate against whites, trying to hold quotas. To me, there ain't nothing more racist in the world that you hire somebody not on the color of the skin. Me, you, and Bill were talking about the football leagues and the baseball teams and how some of these people are screaming. We need black managers. We need black coaches. We need black whatever. And it's not just blacks, but Asians, Hispanics. We got to hire minorities. And the way I look at it, it's about job performance. If you're not qualified for the job, I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care. I don't care what color your skin is. If you can't do the job, you can't do the job. If you're black, white, yellow, green, purple, whatever, you do it based on your qualifications. So this reparation crap goes hand in hand with the social justice crap that is strangling and destroying this country from within, not from without. Those are greater dangers to us tonight than anything across that country. And you've got the greatest betrayer of the country sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue tonight. He's doing it from the top.
I know. And, I was thinking about this the other day. Since COVID, in just 3 short years, look at how many of our rights, our civil rights, have been violated or taken away. Some of them we got back after so-called COVID, went away. But some of those we're never going to get back. I think we're really close to losing freedom of speech.
We are.
We're really close to you're right. It's the total destruction of the United States, and we're doing it to ourselves because, and I said this, I really do think it's generational in the fact that we are teaching these kids to hate
We're
America.
teaching them to hate America. We are.
And when you do that, you have, and also we're much less of a godly people than we were, 25, 35 years ago. There are fewer Christians. I may have told Chris too, but I was telling my husband, I feel closer to God lately in the last few years and since COVID, because I feel like God needs me to be out there preaching the gospel and doing what I can do to share Jesus with everyone.
Amen.
Because this is such a horrible place.
We've
created this horrible country. Just in 3 or 4 years, it's gone to hell in a handbasket.
It is. I met your beautiful little grandson this evening, and it made me think about something when you said what you just said. The country that we're leaving these kids, Leslie, is a malpractice. It is literally spiritual malpractice on our part as a generation of adults of what we're leaving our children and our grandchildren. And I know you probably heard about it, about the girl that basically was caught on a video bragging. She was teaching her kids about LGBTQ practices like it was some kind of joke. And these were infants, not teenagers, but toddlers, middle-aged kids, 7, 8, 9, 10. And when she was called on the carpet about it, she basically came out and let the cat out of the bag that we've already known how the public school system feels. And she says, you have no right as a parent to your child if they're in public school. In other words, you've got no right to tell us what to teach your kids if you're in public school. And I totally disagree with that, but that's their agenda. They believe that. They believe they got a right to tell your grandson that it's okay for a man to look like a woman and a woman to look like a man and two men to marry, two women to marry. That agenda, that's exactly how they feel. And that's what they're doing.
They are.
And I got news for them. It is not, they don't have a right to do that. And I want to see them try to do that to my young. And thank God my son is going to homeschool his kids. But I would tell them right now, I'd be fine. This little imbecile that said that would find out real quick who's got control of my youngin'. It ain't her.
No,
it ain't her.
And you have to hand it to Virginians for
Yes.
standing up. I think that was totally a shock to the
Yes.
school board
Yes.
and to those teachers that are so, Brandy Weingarten, what a
Yes.
fruitcake
Absolutely.
she is. She's evil. She's trying to indoctrinate our kids. And I always think of my grandson being 9. Imagine him seeing a drag show in the library.
Right.
What in the world?
Right.
He would have no clue what's going on. You can't even deal with your own sexuality when you're 12 years old. You're going to deal with somebody else's and explain what their preference is. There is no such thing as preference.
No, never. I went to the some general stuff with you, and we're going to talk about a few other things and take a question or two. I went to Harry Truman's library today, and I was actually quite shocked. Harry Truman was a Democrat, and I'm sharing with you and Bill earlier tonight that Truman actually, even though he was a Democrat, if I had to list my top 5 presidents tonight, I would put Donald Trump at number 1, Ronald Reagan number 2, Abraham Lincoln number 3, George Washington number 4, and I would list Harry Truman, even though he was a Democrat and he had a lot of problems. I probably wouldn't have voted for Harry Truman in a million years up against any Republican. But when he came into office, this is something I did not know until today, just 82 days into his time as vice president, 82 days, FDR died in April of 1945. Truman was basically a businessman, a farmer, an uneducated. He was mocked by the Washington establishment. He was hated by them. And he comes in, has to take over the presidency. And he single-heartedly put pressure on the UN in 1947, just 2 years after the war, to give Israel a homeland. Its historians have argued and argued about his decision to drop the bomb. Your husband, who's also a big history major, he was so right tonight. He said that Truman's actions probably saved 10 million more lives by him doing that, because the Japanese were never going to surrender. Never. And I totally believe that. And I just want to ask you who your top 5 presidents were, but this is why I'm going to ask you this, because this is the common denominator in all of those 5. Every one of them, except for Washington. And I'm sure if we'd have had social media back during the colonies, that it would have been
pretty.
The Democrats, if the Democrats would have been running the country, we would have never fought the British.
No.
If the Democrats would have been running the country under Lincoln, we would have probably given in to the South. And no offense, Southerners, I'm a Southerner, but the South will not rise again. I'm sorry, it was a bad move on the South to try to succeed from Lincoln. But all of these presidents had one thing in common. They were all hated by the mainstream media and the mainstream of America, with the exception of Washington. And probably the only reason we don't know that he was hated is that the media was not in play during his time like it was in these other presidents. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I am a huge Trump fan. I am not taking up for anything. He's not perfect.
Right.
None of them are. I think some of the things that we would hear about JFK would probably curdle your liver if you could hear them. I mean, I think there's a lot of imperfect men out there. I would my number 1 might be Reagan. And part of the reason is because I was coming of age
Me
when
too.
Reagan was elected.
Me too. Same here.
It was just so phenomenally mind-blowing to me when I heard Reagan speak, and he was such a great orator too. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps now. I remember the first time or two, and of course, everyone hated Carter. I guess I was like 19, and I thought, this country, he's trying to tell us to set our thermostat at 65 degrees in the winter. And, you're thinking all of this. And
Right.
so it was life-changing for me watching Reagan. He could just do such a great speech. And I think Trump can too. The one thing Reagan was really good about doing was taking himself out of the equation. Trump is not good at that.
Right.
I do love Trump. What he did in 4 years against complete opposition and lies and the P-tape scandal and
right.
all of this is phenomenal. He gets an A for just the sheer, just everything he did. Don't you know every day of his life must have been hell when he woke up?
Oh, I can no one imagine. Absolutely.
And he didn't have to do it. It wasn't about money. It's about love for his country.
Right.
So he and Reagan are tied. Obviously, Washington, Lincoln, they were great presidents.
They were great presidents. They were all great. We've had some good presidents, not many in 200 years, but we've had a few. Teddy Roosevelt was a decent man.
Yeah,
I believe Teddy was a good one. And there was a lot of men that I felt like had somewhat the country at heart. I think Gerald Ford, in his own way, after the Nixon years, tried to patch together the country. He paid a price for it because Carter beat him in 76. But Ford saw the country needed to heal. And at the risk of his own presidency, he did what was right by Nixon. I saw something today about Truman that was interesting. And this, again, made me respect him. I'm not saying, because I can almost hear the naysayers out there, well, if you'll do your research on Truman, oh, my God, all this mess. And, you can find a lot of crap on all of them. But this is the thing. Truman never took a dime after he left the White House for any speaking engagement. He put all of his own money to build a presidential library and that museum to preserve what he did. And he never went on speaking tours. He never went on book deals. He let all of that take place toward the end of his life after he had been out of the White House. And he died in 1973. And from by what I could glean from there today, and there were some things I saw in that it was a Democrat president, and I had to hold my nose a few times listening to some of it. But he did lead the country, Leslie, just like Reagan did during the Cold War. Trump did during this tough time after Obama. Look, Washington, the Revolutionary War, fighting for our freedom. Lincoln, the Civil War, like you said. Look, there was no greater hard to have to deal with than a divided nation and try to bring a nation back together, okay? And then, and again, Truman took over 82 days into his vice presidency to end a bloody world war that had killed 55 million people. And faced with the prospects of losing another 10 million, he dropped the bomb. He dropped the atom bomb. And historians can argue with this, but I still believe his greatest accomplishment of any president was Israel. He put the weight of America behind Israel as a Democrat. And I'm going to say this tonight. I may be wrong. I don't think a Republican president would have done that as he did had they been in office, because it was evident that Eisenhower and all the other Republicans that have followed have had they've had very weak support for Israel, at best, timid. Truman basically risked his whole presidency on saying, I'm going to back the Jewish state. I will always go to my grave respecting him for that. Amen. His other thing, let historians argue, let God deal with what Harry Truman did that was wrong, but he's made my top 5 for that reason. And again,
Trump did that too.
And Trump did it too, and that's what I meant. And again, that was why amazing. People hated him. Mm-hmm. Reagan was a strong supporter of Israel. Israel wasn't in existence when Lincoln was there in Washington, so those are two separate issues. But the presidents, after all of these presidents, were hated by the public, and that should tell us to do what's right sometimes in leadership, You've got to not worry about public opinion or about media opinion. And that's why I love Trump, because he don't care about either. Mm-hmm. And that's who we got to have, I think, to try to fix this, if it's fixable at this point. What say you?
Yeah. And one thing that kind of struck me that I hadn't, I guess I've thought of it, but kind of in roundabout terms, Trump is talking, whenever Trump talks, he's talking to the people. He's not talking to the media or, trying to subdue this group or make this more palatable. He is talking to you and I. And I love that about Trump. He's just so unique, and you don't have to like him. I love it when people talk to me with emotions. I know they're Democrats. They're not reasonable. That sounds so terrible. I'm sorry if you guys are, any of you, but it's just a matter of not dealing with your emotions all the time.
That's right.
Emotions shouldn't lead you.
Come on.
It should be common sense. And
common
God
sense.
gave us a brain.
Come on.
Let's just use it. Why?
Amen.
Why do you possibly think that's important?
John Mottola is out there. He's saying 100% true. John's a Yankee. I've met John up in Brooklyn, and we had a long talk about this. John said, "Chris, I'm a New Yorker, and I didn't care Trump was Trump." He said, "That's what I loved about him." Good to see you, John. Good to see you in the house tonight. And I'm with John on this one, and I'm with you on that too. Folks, you're watching a very special live McFiles. We're coming to you tonight from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Live and in person. We got Leslie Millwee, not on Zoom tonight, but she is sitting here in the flesh right here by me tonight. Such a good friend, and I'm just grateful to have her on this Monday night. We've been talking about several things. I got to ask you, you got any idea where those chemicals are at?
Oh, gosh. Oh, that's terrifying. And the fact that it's happened in California, there's no oversight. So, yeah, that's so scary. I have no idea. That blew me away.
That blew me away, too. In this weird long list of weird, that's going on, that's on a scale of 1 to 10, that's about a 50. Yeah. That's a 50.
Yeah. And isn't that a smokescreen? We're talking about that, and it probably did happen, but they may know where things are. But it's a smokescreen because right now Biden can't string two sentences together with, Zelensky. He can't.
I know.
He can't negotiate with Putin. China's walking all over us. It's a smokescreen. So you don't know all the bad things that are happening every frigging day in this country.
Yeah. If you got a question for Leslie, if it's about anything in the country, we'll let you post your question. If it's within bounds, I'll ask it. If it's not, I won't. But if you got a question for her, put it in there. I got to ask you a question. My first question to you is simple. What is the best ticket in your mind for the Republicans, and who do you think the Dems? I hadn't even asked you this question tonight. I do want to back up a little bit on the Democratic side. Not that I care, but it's an intriguing thing to see Robert Kennedy Jr. emerge as a potential choice against Biden. He has actually done a lot of good things related to the coconut cake, SHOT. And absolutely. I have agreed when I find myself agreeing with a Kennedy, this world's going insane. But he's done he said some good stuff about it, and I think he's had some common sense. I think he poses a threat to Biden. But who do you think is going to wind up when we get down to this coming year? Who are we going to be looking at on that ticket on both sides? You think?
Well, I have to say I have been so pleasantly surprised with Kennedy.
RFK. I have too.
He speaks sense. I did a little research when he came out and everything, just to see what his platform was and kind of see, where he sits. He is a little nutso on the environment.
Sure.
And if that's the worst thing about him, I think I could live with that. He is probably the Democrat now that I can think of all Democrats that makes the most sense, that can have a reasonable conversation. The caveat being his health issues. I'm wondering if that's off-putting for people to hear him and talk. And what do you know what disease he has? Does he have Parkinson's?
Yeah, I think it's Parkinson's. Yeah.
Which doesn't affect his mind, but I think it. But hey, if we can tolerate Joe Biden.
Alzheimer's. We got an Alzheimer's patient.
Shaking hands in the air. Kennedy looks pretty good to me. I think it's a long shot. I don't think, but Kennedy's already got 20%.
Yes, he does. I think he's got a shot. I do. And I think, look, the moderate Democrats can go one or two places, but they got a primary. Okay. They've got a primary. They can put Biden back in there and Miss, I was about to say a nasty word, Miss Harris. I was about to use another H word I shouldn't use on my show, but they can put that ticket back at the top. I'm telling you, these moderate Dems are going to jump ship. If they've got a moderate choice, though, to put up against, whether it's Trump or somebody else, I think it poses a unique situation. And I'm not trying to sit here and say that I trust Robert Kennedy past that freaking wall right there. I don't. I would never vote for him. But I have to be honest with you, he's not Zell Miller. I always liked Zell Miller. If I've would ever vote for a Democrat, I would have voted for Zell Miller for president. Not so much for the dynamics of the party, but for the man. Because I look at the man with principle. We don't have any Zell Millers left in the Democratic Party. They have gone totally insane.
Slightly Joe Manchin.
Maybe,
I think
but he's
potential.
A snake. Yeah.
Yeah, but if he were really dedicated and committed to all these things that he says he is, then he would either be an independent or a Republican.
I'll agree with that.
Made the change.
I'll agree with that.
And so I disavowed the Democratic Party for X, Y, and Z, and I'm independent. I'm
independent too. I've always been independent. Who do you think Trump gets this? I know he got a large lead in the polls, but who do you think is his best choice for his running mate? I know that there's a long list of people, and I know I've always told people it's too early to even be talking about it, but it is something just in a fun way to try to surmise, because things on the ground may change. Where we're at right now, we may not be there a year from now, and his needs may change for the campaign where he's at tonight compared to what's coming next year. Because politics, like even 2 weeks in politics, it's an eternity. It is an eternity, right?
And you and I were talking earlier. I think we've been in a recession. I think there are qualities and quantities. Anyone that eats and goes to the grocery store, goes to a restaurant, and I use this. I go to Jimmy John's sandwich shop a lot.
Right.
Love it. I get a Little John meal, and it was $5.99, and then it went up to $6.25, and that was a chip, drinks, and a sandwich, a little sandwich.
Little sandwich, yeah.
That same thing now is $10
exactly.
and 50 cents.
Exactly.
That is in 1 year.
Yeah.
1 year. That's like a 40% increase. Go to the grocery store. I just bought $10 worth of grapes the other day. I said, "Oh, I love cotton candy grapes." $9.87. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. And anyone that eats and goes to the store or goes out to eat, they know that our dollars go a lot less further than they used to.
A couple of names that they're putting in the chat. Trump, Carson. I like Carson, but I don't think he would be strong enough to carry the ticket. I don't think that's a wise choice. I mean, I may be wrong. The Huckabee, I'm assuming Lisa's meaning Sarah. I've been told by people over the weekend in Kansas City, and I've been told by people that live in Arkansas, she's doing a decent job, not a great job, but they're not sure she's ready for the primetime lights, and I don't either. I don't think she's ready for that right now. I don't. So I'm not really. I love her too. It's not even the fact I don't like her. Look. This ain't a personality contest, and that's what I think people need to understand. We're not electing somebody that we can love. You got to elect somebody that can be politically savvy and can lead the country. And look, just what happened to FDR. In that fourth term of his, he died 3 months into his fourth term. Truman was thrust into this World War II. You've got to have somebody that you can be sure that can lead in a time of crisis should something happen to the president. That's why these vice president choices are correct. They're not at the top of the ticket, but you've got to keep that in mind. And it's just like Biden. It scares, look, I don't like Joe Biden, but she scares the blank out of me 10 million times worse than anything that he's doing. She scares me more.
I'm telling you, I don't even know if she registers on the IQ chart. I mean, she is scary to me. I think she made her way through California politics by we won't mention Willie Brown. Okay, we will. She literally used her race and her fact that she was a liberal Democrat all the way up the chain. She did a lousy job there, and she can't do anything now. I mean, think about it.
I'll agree. But she's one breath away from the president. Good question. Cleo was in the house tonight. I was wondering if she was out there. I hadn't seen her yet. She's popped up just then. And good question. I'm glad that Dennis Floyd asked this question because it gives me a chance to talk about the museum again today. Who advised Truman to back Israel? Dennis, there was a man by the name of Chaim Weizmann. Not the Rothschilds, Q folks. Sorry. Wrong answer, Alex. Try for triple jeopardy, morons. But Chaim Weizmann, he was a Jewish individual. I want to say an entrepreneur, businessman, but he had a heart for Israel. He became friends with Harry Truman, and he approached Truman, and he passionately told Harry in a roundabout way that Israel needed a homeland, that the Holocaust that took place could not ever happen again, and that the Jews needed a homeland. And his argument to Truman was so moving that the Lord, I believe it was the Lord, Dennis, it was more than just Chaim. It was the Lord dealing with Harry Truman's heart, but Harry Truman's heart was softened. And I'm going to tell you something. Even his own Secretary of State at the time, and I don't know who that was. I wish Bill was in here. He could tell me because he's a historian. But Truman's own Secretary of State was begging him not to do it. The government, all the media, all of the Democratic Party was telling Truman, don't do this. We're not going to do this. We don't want to do this. And Truman said, blank you, basically, we're going to do it because of the influence of Chaz Weizmann. But Chaim, not Chaz, but Chaim, it's spelled C-H-A-M, Chaim Weizmann. And let me tell you this, it wasn't Chaim, Dennis, it was God of heaven, because God had ordained Israel to become a nation. And on May 15th, we're coming up on, we just passed the date here about 5 days ago, their Independence Day this past week. And let me tell you what happened, Dennis, when they declared their independence. You want to know why Israel's got all that land tonight that she's got, that the Arabs are screaming about? Mark this down, write this down somewhere. Every land inch that Israel has tonight was taken by them when they were attacked by the Arabs. They never went attacking the Arabs to get land. The Arabs attacked them and lost their land to the Israelis. And that land belongs to God. The land grant of Genesis 15, folks, goes from the Mediterranean all the way to the Euphrates River. That includes Iraq, Iran. And if the Palestinians are a little ticked off tonight about their little sliver, guess what? Johnny, smoke up, baby, because what's coming, they're going to own half the Middle East when Jesus comes back. Is that right, Miss Millwee?
Amen.
They're going to own half the Middle East. But anyway, all righty. Any other questions for Leslie tonight? Good stuff tonight. I really appreciate you being out there tonight. Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you, Cleo. Good to see you, dear. She's up and late tonight. If she's at this hour, she's in Australia. Any other things? Trump Huckabee, I get it, but I just don't believe Huckabee's your answer. Do you?
No, I think versus especially the Democrats, I think we have some great young new talent. I know people throw Charlie Kirk around and Candace Owens, and I think we have a good base. I don't know. I wish we'd get away from the Mike Pences.
I'll agree. Older guys. Totally agree.
Let's get a woman.
Totally agree.
Let's get somebody a lot younger. That's where DeSantis kind of comes in. What is he, like 48 or 49?
Yeah, he's 48 or 49. He's a little younger than us. Yeah.
He's young, and he's, he can, like you said, take the helm in 28.
But do you think that he would be willing to run as number 2? Do you think there's too much history with that?
I don't know. Who would have thought, Kamala literally threw Biden under the bus about busing. So who would have thought, when they had that debate and he was so mean to Kamala, and she said, I was the little girl that got on to be bussed at that during that debate in 2016 for the Democrats. So I think politics are dirty, but they usually put their differences aside. I would like to think that. Whether those two egos could work it out,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Bama fan says Ron is Bush back. No thanks. Well, Bama, I get it, but look, I'm going to be honest with y'all, folks. There's a lot of things that Trump's been saying that I don't agree with right now, and I mean, there's a lot of things that I've had some issues with Trump, even him. So it's not about who's backing who. The Bush back a lot of people, for that matter. I mean, there's people that you could argue that's backing Trump that you may not like. So it's not who's backing them that matters. It's what matters is, are they going to be a legitimate candidate? I don't have any problem with Ron DeSantis in 2028, honestly, because I don't think there's really anybody lurking in the wings and ready to take over 4 years after this next coming election. Now, we'll say this, and this is the spiritual part of this. We don't know where we're going to be even tomorrow. Mm-mm. The Lord could come back, and this could be rendered mute. And what we're talking about is things that we really don't have any control over in the future. And I don't know. It's going to be an interesting year. Like I told you tonight over dinner, we can't survive another year of this. Mm-hmm. We're barely going to be able to survive what we got ahead of us to next year till the election comes. But we had better understand that it is getting ready to change in this country. If we don't get our stuff right, we're not going to have a country to worry about in 2 years.
Well, if immigrants are voting, then a Republican or a conservative will never, ever be elected again, because you don't cut off your nose to spite your face. If you're getting everything from a free phone to food stamps to support and insurance, why would you vote for somebody who wants to lower that and make you accountable for any handouts?
Yeah.
Bill Clinton is a horrible human being, but the one thing he did do that I've always thought was one of his best moves was the welfare. Let's reform welfare. And, he did do that. And we need to reform welfare again, right along with our...
I'll agree. Speaking of welfare, it's interesting. I was watching a video. People may not know this. Truman was the father of Medicare, which has turned into a disaster. So again, he wasn't a perfect man, and he was a Democrat. But he did understand national security, and he did understand Israel. And thank you, Mary. May 14th, 1948 at midnight, the Provisional Government of Israel proclaimed a new state. On May the 15th, Mary, guess what? Jordan and Egypt attacked them. Syria attacked them. The Arab world said, we're not going to stand for this, and they got their butts kicked because the God of Israel fought for Israel, even in her backslidden state. The God of Israel was there to protect that nation and America, and so forth, so forth, so forth. It was 70 years. It'd be 70 years, 2018, Mary, was when it was. That was when Trump actually moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He did that in December of the year 2018. So yes, 2018 was the 70-year anniversary of Israel's existence. A very prophetic time, and it's still prophetic tonight. Miss Leslie Millwee, I cannot tell you how grateful it's been to have you. It's so good to be fellowshipping with you tonight. We're going to let everybody go. It's 8:30 in the Central Time Zone, 9:30. I'm not even going to give you an afterthought tonight. Chris is going to shut his mouth. I could spend about 2 hours talking to you. I do want to say this before we say goodnight. I want to thank everybody who made the effort to come to Kansas City. We had a blessed weekend. And Mary, he did it in December. He did it in December of 2018. He didn't do it during May. He moved it in the winter time. He was over there in November. Actually, he did it may have been November 2017, I think, because when Truman and them voted for it was in 1947, Mary. The vote in the UN was November of 1947. Israel proclaimed it. It went into effect May of 1948. So that's why. But anyway, folks, all you that came out to Kansas City, and I want to just say a special shout out to the state of South Dakota tonight. You warmed my heart, all of you that came out. There was a bunch of you that came down from South Dakota. Some of you drove 7 hours to be with us. My goodness. And that was not forgotten by this host how much that meant to me. And thank you. We had a wonderful weekend. We were not able to air it live because of internet issues at the hotel, but we did get a hard copy, especially Sunday service. And then Saturday service, we got to splice it together. We got to do some editing. But we'll let you watch some of it on our Faith Network and also Facebook sometime this week or next. So you'll get to see it. It'll be just delayed. But thank you so much. And we hope that you all enjoyed the weekend with us in Kansas City. And we shall return to the Midwest. And I want to thank this beautiful lady here for her friendship. Buddy, I want to thank you. It's been a good run. We've been knowing each other 6 years now. And country's in a mess right now. And it's people like you that I look to talk to us. And we're just grateful that you could be with us tonight. Listen, God bless you out there. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. I will probably not be on tomorrow night. If I am, it will be a late show. I'll be driving home tomorrow from Oklahoma. I don't know. These Oklahomans may draft me to run for governor or something and keep me here. And we might just hold a faith crusade in Oklahoma City over the weekend. We might just stay here and preach to these Oklahoma Sooners. I don't know, these Cowboys. So I don't know what we'll do, but we will probably not be at home in time to do a show tomorrow night. But Wednesday night we'll be back to our faith show, and then the rest of the week sort of up in the air. We got Memorial Day coming, and we'll announce that as we go. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. The one and only Miss Leslie Millwee, Juanita Broderick. If you're out there, love you, dear. And we're going to have her back on soon, too. God bless you all out there. Thank y'all for being with me tonight on this Monday night. Does Leslie do good? Put some fire in that house. Put some fire in that house for me. And we're going to go out of here with Gentle on My Mind again. You all are always gentle on my mind, and I appreciate you being with me tonight. God bless you. Have a good night, everybody. See you later. Good night.
It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk. It makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. It's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and thoughts and the ink stains that have dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory. That keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the rocks and ivy painted on their columns now that bind me. Or something that somebody said because they thought we'd fit together walking. It's not knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving when I walk around the railroad track and find that you're moving on the back roads by the rivers of my memory, and hours you're just gentle on my mind. Though the wheat fields and the clotheslines and the junkyards and the highways come between us, and some other woman's crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone, I still might run in silence, tears of joy might stain my face, and the summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you walking on the back roads by the rivers flowing gentle on my mind. I dip my cup of soup back from a gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard. My beard a rustling towel and a dirty hat pulled low across my face. Through cup hands round the tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waiting from the back roads by the rivers of my memories, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind.